Hi guys, my name is Nancy, and I want to tell you the story of how I was the daughter of a millionaire, and then I decided to kind of become poor. But first things first, please support me by liking, commenting, and sharing my video with your friends. Right? Let's go! I have a father, but I call him Mr. Freddy. His real name is Toby London. It's just that when I was a kid, I had this bunny toy that I loved, and I called him Mr. Freddy, and one day he got lost. I cried a lot and got upset, and to cheer me up, my dad would pretend to be this bunny, talking to me with these fake bunny ears. It was so cute, and it comforted me. So that's how his name stayed, Mr. Freddy. I have a mom, but she and Dad divorced so long ago that I don't even remember her. Dad valued potential in people. He himself had been a businessman almost since he was a kid. He'd risen up on his own, achieved everything, and he had his own opinion about poor people. "Only lazy people don't get rich," he always said. My father didn't mean that you have to break your back for money. After all, laziness is the engine of progress. There are many benefits from it too, but there is a huge difference between a lazy person and a passive one. Dad taught me everything in his textile business. Even though I learned a lot, I still didn't like it. What was my dream? Yes, what many teenage girls dream of. To sing on a big stage. I actually had a good voice. But no matter how much I told my father that my potential lay in creative stuff, he called me lazy. We used to argue about it a lot. Since my dad wouldn't let me go to the cool vocal teacher, I saved up and paid for one of the coolest ones. He was in short supply, and the appointment was filled a year in advance, so I had to pay double the money to get my appointment closer. I didn't regret spending it because, in my mind, it wasn't a waste. It was an investment. After a month of classes, the teacher sent an emergency notice to move. And if he didn't want to do it civically, via messenger, he sent a letter by mail with a box of chocolates. Naturally, the mail was checked by my father's assistant, who immediately ratted me out. This caused a scandal in the house. It was the first time I'd ever had such a fright with Mr. Freddy. He brought up the business again, and I yelled that I didn't need the business or the money. Then I yelled in anger that I was fine without it all, packed my bags, and took off for the car. So I sat in the next street for 2 hours, and my dad never called or texted me. Then I decided this was the perfect opportunity to spend the weekend away from him. Even though my wallet was empty then because of the courses, I had a couple of high-rise apartment buildings and could stay in any of the penthouses. I didn't get any money from them, but I could get a roof over my head. I went out with a small suitcase of clothes, and the only thing I could think of was to walk across the bridge at night. I stood on the curb to get a better look around, and then some guy came up behind me. He looked weird, in such cheap clothes. I wanted to insult him out of habit, but then I looked at myself. I looked a lot worse that night. The brand clothes looked like the worn-out clothes of my neighbor's daughter. He stood next to me and said, "If you jump, I'll follow you. Because I'm too lazy to talk you into it, and it'll come out that I pushed you. I just don't want to go to jail." What? I wasn't going to jump. "Oh, yeah? Well then, what are you doing here?" "I'm staring." Damn, I already thought I was heroically saving a beautiful girl from bad thoughts and horrible consequences. Well, you got the wrong girl. The only thing I want to do right now is eat, not kill myself. Would you like a hot dog? Hot dog? The ones they sell on the street? Yeah, what did you think? And at that very minute, a thought occurred to me. What if I pretended to be poor? All my friends are rich like me, and for the first time, someone talked to me without knowing how much money I had. So we met. His name was Luca. That night we ate unbelievably good street food and drank soda. It was the tastiest thing I'd ever had. I left the car in the underground parking lot and walked around with him for the next 4 days, talking, laughing, enjoying myself. When he asked why I slept in such a swanky place, I answered that my dad worked there and we lived in the back. I liked my plan, but I hadn't considered the fact that I was going to like Luca so much. Falling in love with a poor guy was such a long shot. It's such a surefire loser proposition. A relationship with a poor guy would have gotten me strangled. As I thought about it, I noticed that Luca and I weren't far from my father's building. His assistant saw me and invited me in. Luca was surprised, and I said quietly that this was his employer, and we knew each other. I was nervous. I didn't know how or what would pass. But luckily, my father didn't call me daughter. He only called me by my first name, firmly convinced that this was the way it was supposed to be. So we went into the study and Dad invited us to sit down. Poor Luca looked at him with as much excitement as I did. "Mr. Freddy, did you want something? I'm in a hurry with my friend."
"Friend? What's your name?"
"Luca, sir."
"Would you like some coffee?"
"I won't say no." I knew Daddy's tests. He gave Luca a cup of Americano without sugar or cream and asked,
"How do you like your cappuccino?"
If the person said, "It's all very good," my father concluded that he was just being flattered. I agree, strange methods, but many times he chose his business partners this way without fail. And I wasn't surprised that he decided to check out the boy I was going out with.
"Thank you, sir, but that's a pure Americano, isn't it?"
"I prefer sugar and cream," Luca answered confidently. Dad was as impressed as I was. Dad pretended to be confused and went to make a new coffee. And I quietly asked Luca how he knew about coffee. My crush replied that he'd worked for rich people for a long time. After a nice chat, we left Daddy's, saying goodbye. Luca wanted to walk me to the back of the elite store, but I asked him where he lived, and we came to an old, branchy house. Everything there was very old and didn't smell so good. I was surprised that such houses still existed. Without thinking too much, I wanted to clean it up, and I spent 3.5 hours doing it. In the end, the house looked really nice. Luca and I fooled around a lot during that time, and we fooled around a lot. Man, I liked him even more after that, but I couldn't help thinking that my father wouldn't let us be together. And then I got hungry, and since we didn't have any money, we went outside, and I put Luke's cap on the ground and started singing. I was applauded. Such a lovely crowd was cooler than my dad's buddies. They filmed us, took pictures, and gave us some money, which Luca and I then spent on food. That night was better than any of my previous nights. Luca and I said goodbye, and I kissed him on the lips. Oh, my heart nearly jumped out of my chest. Luca left, and we agreed to meet again. I walked home in euphoria and saw my dad hanging around outside. "Mr. Freddy, what are you doing here?" Dad silently showed me the video of Luca and me singing and making money. "Damn, did your assistant spy on me again?"
"It doesn't matter. You know exactly how I feel about poor people. Yes, Luca, or whatever his name is, knows a lot about coffee. But he's poor. He's not just poor, he's beggarly. His house costs less than your car. Does he even know you're rich? Is that why he's after you?"
I knew I couldn't change my father's mind, so I lied to him. He's rich. He owns a coffee shop chain.
"Is that right?"
"Yeah."
"So, why does he look like that?"
"He doesn't like to splurge on casual clothes, but he's not always like that."
If you're not lying to me, I'm all for it. He's got potential. Let's get to know each other better. Tomorrow at 3 p.m., I'll expect you for lunch at the restaurant. My assistant will pick you up."
"Okay." My father left, and I didn't know what to do. Either my father would get rid of him, or... Wait a minute. Of course he would. I thought of something. In the morning, I was at Luke's door. I knocked and knocked, but no one opened. I was about to go looking for him when he came up, wondering what I was doing at his place so early. I lied to him that Mr. Freddy was interested in his coffee skills and wanted to hire him for a job, and that required preparation. I took him to an expensive boutique and picked out a suit and bought the most expensive one.
"Look, where did you get that kind of money?"
"Mr. Freddy gave it to me. We're just going to his favorite restaurant, and there's a dress code."
"I see. It's just like, it seems like you've been here before. Everybody said hi to you."
"Oh, right. That's right. I was here once on behalf of Mr. Freddy's daughter." The assistant came to pick us up. Sitting in the taxi, I asked if Luca was worried.
"He doesn't like the poor, right?"
"How do you know?" "How the hell did he know?"
"I could tell. He's squeamish about me and you."
You could say that, but don't worry. You'll be fine." "I know so." Mr. Freddy was ordering the food. I wanted to tell Luke how to use the utensils, but he cut the steak so quickly and deftly, poured me water, and ordered a salad from the waiter. My father watched him carefully. Luca acted as if he'd always lived in luxury, easily maintaining topics about stocks, the stock market, and investments. Suddenly, Dad asked him what he thought of the poor working class, like him. It sounded so rude, but Luca replied,
"I think it's undervalued." "Go on."
"This year, because of the crisis in the world, the working class of the peasantry in our country has shrunk considerably. Farmers have low wages, so native Britons are in no hurry to go out to work like this.
Because of the shortage of hands, we lost 60 million pounds worth of crops. They just rotted away because there was no one to harvest them. And what would you suggest? Drop a contract with third countries, open the gates to migrants. For them, our earnings are a little more than theirs for the same work. Everyone would be better off. Poverty pulls poverty. But you're right. The working class is what we're missing right now. Excuse me, I have a call about work.
Daddy went away, and I stared at my smart-ass crush with amorous eyes. We said goodbye to my dad, thanked him for dinner, and Luca said he planned to feed me the homemade hot dog I loved so much. I got excited and said I'd find some room in my stomach. So we arrived at Luca's house, where my dad was standing. We were both in shock.
Luca, is this your house? Yes. I knew you were poor.
Mr. Freddy, what are you doing here?
I'm worried. You're my only daughter, and I don't intend to turn a blind eye on who you're associating with.
A poor man?
Right.
So you're her father. I knew it. And getting back to our conversation, you still don't appreciate the working class.
I don't give a damn when it comes to personal matters.
My heart was broken. My father took me home. He said I was going to live in the house like I used to. We had a fight, and I couldn't sleep. In the middle of the night, I decided to run away and go to the bridge. But there was a knock at the window. It was Luca, with flowers. What is it?
I want to ask you to forgive me.
For what?
I deceived you like you deceived me.
What?
I'm rich too.
I didn't believe it until I saw his car, papers, and house. It turned out that old house belonged to an acquaintance of his grandfather, which he'd rented to prove to me that he was poor. It's not for nothing that the rich have their quirks, right? Tell me, guys, did you like my story? Write your opinion about it in the comments below the video. Don't forget to like it, share the video with your friends, and subscribe to the channel.